All right, guys. I made this channel to talk about stuff, my life, the things I see. This video, I think it's going to be about my life, something that has happened to me. And, if nobody believes me, yet again, I can prove what I say. I want to talk about this happened to me 2.5 years ago, somewhere in there, around about 2.5 years ago. It would be the last time that I would ever play in a carnival show. I worked in a game. It was a pop gun. I made a few bucks. It was all right. But that would be the end of my carnival career. And the guy I was working for, I was like, so where are we going from here? And he goes, well, I'm going back to Tampa, they're just, to Gibsonton, and then they know where else to go. We got lucky on this one. And I'm like, well, I ain't going back there. And I thanked him for the job, and we shook hands. He paid me off, and I started marching south. We were in West Palm at a Catholic church that I think called St. Luke. St. Luke, I think, was the name of the church. I'm pretty sure about that. It's not that I think I've made that spot a couple times. Well, I certainly know West Palm. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I start marching south, and I know south of me is Boca Raton. And there's a beach there. There's a big park there called Spanish River Park. My history of Spanish River Park, and this ain't no shit and lie, guys. This happened to me in this place called Spanish River Park. It's in Boca Raton. This happened to me in my life in this place. So we finish fair, whatever. We all separate ways. I ain't going back to Tampa, and he, everybody nowhere else for him to go. So I figured, we'll go look for a shrimp boat. I'd never really worked a shrimp boat, or not really. I've never worked a shrimp boat up and down the East Coast, but I know they exist here. I know they exist in Key West anyway. So I would assume that they exist, Anyway, I make it to Boca Raton, and I'm sitting in this pavilion in this park called Spanish River Park. And when I was a kid, my parents, they used to come up to this park, and there's a whole horror story about that, and I'll tell you here in a minute. Well, anyway, I'm sitting in this pavilion, and I'm right at the end of Spanish River Boulevard. You can Google map this if you want. Where Spanish River Boulevard dead ends at A1A there at the beach, it's Spanish River Park, and that's where you can take the dog. That's where they let you take the dogs down. And why somebody can't take a dog down the beach? Let me not do that. Anyway, I'm sitting in this pavilion. They had a pavilion there, and it was like right at the, the dead end of this road. And you would think, and this is another example of what a big dumbass I am. Because 6 days before this happened to me, I saw another guy blow through this intersection. And, of course, he didn't hit the pavilion, but he went down the path that leads down to the beach. I'll tell you that story later. But I'm sitting in this pavilion, and I'm looking for shrimp boats, work, whatever, just hanging out. I had money, so I wouldn't, and I liked the park, and, I've seen so many horrible things happen at this park. I can't believe it. Anyway, I'm sitting there. It's a full moon. It's beautiful. The water's, the waves coming in. I'm contemplating the universe. It was just a beautiful night, man. And I heard the guy's tires hit the curb. And when I turned around, pow! Right in the face with a 2-ton Cadillac, or maybe it was a Buick, I don't know. It wound upside down out on the beach somewhere. Went right through the mangroves and everything, man. I didn't see. All I saw, because he never hit his brakes. He never even hit his brakes, man. I heard the tires hit the curb. But the pavilion was sitting right there at the end of Spanish River Boulevard, you know what I mean? I mean, it was like, and no kidding, just a few days before, I had seen another guy fly a car down the path, and I didn't even think about it, that, wow, somebody could actually lose control and go through this pavilion too. Never thought about that. But they did, and the guy hit me right in the face. Of course, lawsuit. I live, whatever. All right, the pavilion was destroyed. They found me under the rubble. I'd lost half my blood that night. How I survived it, I do not know. But I did. I survived. I look like Frankenstein's monster by the time the doctors were done with me, all the stitches and all. I did. I was terrible. When I start this lawsuit, whatever, you know. Well, the guy, and this is what was so horrible about it. No, actually, it gets even more horrible when I tell you what happened to me later. But anyway, so I survived it. I survived it. I wound up being homeless, destitute, whatever, in Boca Raton for like over 2 years. And the guy that ran me over was a fugitive from the law. You know, I got run over by a fucking Russian mafia guy. And then he had no insurance on the car. You know, I mean, there was just nothing. There was nothing. You know, I mean, I got nothing out of it. And the lawyers that had hired, you know, they after 2.5 years, man, they're like, nah, we quit. There's nothing we can do. You're not gonna get nothing. We're not gonna get nothing. You're not gonna get nothing. I made a big argument about, you know, about the intersection itself, that because just even 6 days, you know, before I got run over, somebody else did the same thing. And I got to know, because I was there for 2 years, you know, I got to know the locals real good, and they're all like, man, you know, we've seen that happen 1,000 times, you know, and I'm like, it's because of the design of the intersection. But nobody would take on, no lawyers would take on Boca Raton. The city of Boca Raton, bunch of Nancys. Well, eventually, of course, you know, I threw in the towel. And I said, well, I'm not going back to the carnival. So let's start a YouTube channel. And we did. And so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens, man. That was the second time I was run over by a car. I don't know, man. We're not going to stop this. We're not. I'll call you guys in a little bit, man. I need to collect myself. It was hard for me to tell that story. That was hard for me. It was. Another. See, I was going to end it right there. But Spanish River Park, Boca Raton, that's not the first time that I was almost killed there. It's not. When I was 50 years ago, longer, when I was 7 years old, my parents used to bring me up there to Spanish River Park. I don't know why we would drive all the way from Miami all the way up to Boca Raton, but they did. You know, for some reason, they liked that park. Back then, I guess it was, you know, a hot spot, whatever. for whatever reason, they would go there. So my parents, they take me to Spanish River Park. I'm 7 years old. Dad's chasing bikinis down the beach. Mom's passed out drunk on the beach towel. Old Teddy decides to go for a swim, right? Let's take a dip. So I jump in the water, I'm swimming around, and guess what gets me, man? A fucking man of war, man. Now, anybody from Florida, the group of Florida, you know what a man of war is, man. This thing, it got me good, man. I mean, it got off my arms, my legs, you know. And the deeper they come in from the ocean, you know, the longer their tentacles get. And I must have got one that came from fucking England or some shit. And, I mean, it just got all red, and it paralyzed me, and I couldn't swim. And I was trying, you know. And thank God, you know, that it's a park, you know. I don't think it's a state park, but it's a, you know, at least a county park, whatever. And they have lifeguards, and the lifeguard swam out, and he saw me drowning because of it. He drags me back in, and all I can remember, I don't know if my mom actually came back to consciousness or not, but I remember the lifeguard using paper towels and just, you know, cloth, because I don't think rubber had been invented yet, rubber gloves, I don't think they had been invented yet, whatever. And him pulling all these tentacles off my skin, off my arms, off my legs, and you could hear it. It was like ripping burlap. You know, it was like taking a burlap bag. You know, I mean, it was extremely painful. Extremely painful. But I lived. And then 50 years later, not even 75 yards away, that son of a bitchin' fugitive, illegal alien ran me over with a car. And it would cost me 2 years of my life. Well, I gotta say it weren't nothing. You know? I mean, if you're gonna be homeless and stranded in someplace, Boca Raton's pretty cool. All right, that's my story about Boca Raton. I'm getting PTSD right now, even thinking about it, so I'll call y'all later.